goes on saying about how he had everything. He had wealth, he had a huge army, he was undefeatable, and he had many allies, and but the big thing that was bothering him was that he did not have a son to continue his kingdom, and also to offer uh, oblations or to the forefather, so that they can attain a good destination. The forefathers can attain a good destination in the Pitraloka. So because of this, he was very, very deeply sorrowed. And at that time, King Angira Muni came. Angira Muni was supposed to be born off of the mind of Lord Brahma. That's very beautiful birth of Angira Rishi. And he appeared and out of nowhere, so just like that. And he was said asking about how they were doing, how the king is doing, how the family is doing, and so on. And in the process, King Chitraketu was mentioning that I have everything, but I don't have a son. I married millions of wives. He married 10 million wives, and hoping that he will get son through one of them, but none of them were able to, bear a child. And so he was deeply sorrowed. And just like he was mentioning that, just like how a person who's hungry and thirsty, if they are offered opulences like other things like health and wealth, they don't even care about them. They're super hungry and so thirsty that they don't even care for flowery garlands that have fragrances that surpass even the heavenly abode. They don't even care, but all they want is their hunger and thirst, the basic needs to be met, that for which they are suffering. So similarly, he says, King Chitraketu says that he has everything, but because he does not have a son, that he is sorrowful. And so Angira Muni provides a solution. He tells King Chitraketu to perform a yagya. Out of the yagya, the Yagya Purusha was born to, and he gave the key to be taken by the queen, which is who is only a single person can be a queen, even though out of many million wives he has married. So the queen's name is Kritadyuti, and so she partook that offering from the yagya, and she became pregnant, and she eventually delivered a son. And Angira Muni, before leaving, he says that the son will be the cause of your happiness and lamentation. And Chitraketu was very not super bothered about why Angira Muni said is lamentation, but maybe he thought that everybody has to, this material world is full of suffering, so as a part of the general suffering, probably he had mentioned. So he has just ignored the fact that he had said that about lamentation. So eventually, so we were at the point where we read the 37th verse, which I just read the translation, where the mother's attraction and attention to the son is like that of a child's father. Sorry, like that of a child's father, excessively increased. The other wives, seeing Kritadyuti's son, were very much agitated, as if by high fevers, with a desire to have sons. So, what we concluded here last week was that the other wives of Chitraketu were envious that the king and the queen were completely focusing their attention on this one son, and then they were being ignored or neglected. So their needs were not being met, and so the outcome of that is the cause of enviousness. So I'll just tell the prayers, and then we can start the session. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bodhile Srimate Adana Samate Namani Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bodhile Srimate Bhaktivedanta Samate Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Vishesha Sunyamati Paschade Sarni Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the first reader we have is Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Would you like to read the 38?
Sure, Mataji. Chitraketor ati pritir yatha dare prajavati na tathanyeshu sanjadnye balam lalayatonvaham. Translation. As King Chitraketu fostered his son very carefully, his affection for Queen Kritadyuti increased, but gradually he lost affection for other wives who had no sons.
If anybody has any reflections on this, they can mention.
I not as a reflection, but more of a question as to Chitraketu was a just king, right? At least I'm assuming he was a just king, but then he's being unjust to his other wives. Shouldn't he be just beginning from his family?
Yes. That's a very great question. So this is if this was just part of the natural process of some people get married and then they get kids, and the life goes on, it is one thing where they are not bothered by or affected by so many things, but he has been longing for this son for several. I'm sure that marrying 10 million wives probably took a span.
I calculated it took around 2,700 years for him to marry each wife.
I missed that. Wow, nice, very nice.
No, I just calculated. He had 1 million, right? Or 10 million.
Okay, you calculated.
Yeah.
Wow, that was very quick. Okay. Yeah. So he's the more the longing, and once that longing is over and you see the fruits in front of you, front of us, we become so enamored by it. We become so attached to it. It's like and so we trying to. It is not that he neglected because he was manipulative, or he was premeditative loss of affection. I think it is just that all his faculties were just involved in just admiring that son, who was born after so many years of prayers, and that he said it's gradually he lost affection. It was not that he wanted to do it. It is just that that is one explanation. Other thing is also that has to further the pastime so that it can. So if others have any reflections, please share. It's a very great question, actually.
Can I add something, Mataji?
Yes, please, Prabhuji.
Very good point raised by Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. Actually, this is the best example where we can relate the love of Jivatma, the limitations of love of Jivatma. See, for example, if you take Krishna, he equally gave love to all 16,108 wives. But is it possible for a Jivatma to do this? Is the best example. See, Chitraketu is having 1 million wives, and Dasharatha Maharaj also have so many wives. See, this is the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Paramatma can extend his love equally to all Jivatmas, but Jivatma cannot do it. He has his own limitations. He can love only Paramatma. So other Jivatmas' love is conditional. So this is because of these limitations, he cannot distribute his love equally to all other fellow Jivatmas. But he can do with Paramatma. So this is what I got, just a reflection. So correct me if I'm wrong.
No, absolutely brilliant inference, Prabhu. I mean, brilliant lesson taken out from this. Definitely, our love is finite. Proves. I mean,
But
our ability to
one
love is
point to
finite.
know, sorry, Prabhu, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One point to note is also that they did not complain before, though. They are only complaining now, right? So if it was, they were married for like going to Jagannath Gopal Prabhu's calculation about 2000 years or so, they did not complain. At least there was no recorded history of them complaining, but only now, right? So there is something that has changed. So it is probably the enviousness. It is maybe also perceived by them that they have lost their affection also.
Could be.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, in many ways, he'll be spending more time with the kid and all that. So,
Yeah, it's
I mean,
possible. Yes.
I have a kid. I mean, many of us here have children, so we know that feeling when you have children.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, you're thinking about them.
Yeah.
What must my child be doing and things like that. So,
Yeah. Actually, the right probably the right approach would be, if the wives love their husband so much, why can't they be cooperative and also be a part of him growing up, not have affect? I mean, that is more maybe maybe then in that case, then they can automatically attract the affection of King Chitraketu, because if we love someone and then there is others who also love them, then our love for the others also increase. Like, for example, just as Jagannath Gopal Prabhu says, he is attached to Prithu, and if he sees that, I like Prithu, everybody plays with Prithu, he makes him happy, even more happy. So it can also be from the other side. Why can't they be adjusting? Or the more appropriate behavior would be from the wives to be more happier for the husband, that he's also happy. Anyway, I guess.
Yeah, so many perspectives.
Yeah.
But yeah, very nice discussion.
Yeah, this is nice. Yeah, very nice discussion. So because it doesn't have purport, maybe we can switch to you want to go ahead the next one, or should we do?
I can read next one also.
Okay, Prabhuji, go ahead.
I mean, it's just taha pariyatapyan pariyatapyan atmanam garhayanto bhyasuyaya anapatyena dukkhena radnyaschana darena cha. The other queens were extremely unhappy due to their being sonless. Because of the king's negligence toward them, they condemned themselves in envy and lamented. I'm nothing to share here as such.
Yeah, I think we've covered about the same point, I think, before. Anybody else has any thoughts, reflection, questions?
So the calculation that I had made, I wanted to share. So
yes,
10 million wives, right? So I mean, I would assume that at least he would dedicate one day for one wedding, right? So if we divide that 10 million by 365, that gives us 27,397. So he spent 27,397 years of his life just getting married.
But he would also wait for the maybe a 1 year or so period, I don't know, for the wife to know that.
I mean, of course, no. I mean, in total, I'm saying total. But I guess I think this was in Satya Yuga, right? I don't know which Yuga this was, but they had long lifetimes also. So it makes sense. Only Krishna is the one. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu proves So, people object to Krishna, to Krishna's marrying so many wives. They say, how come Krishna marries so many wives? He's a sense gratifier, he's characterless, and blah blah blah. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu proves that. So he had married 16,108 wives. So 16,108 divided by, considering he married one wife one day, like at least one day he dedicated for the wedding. So out of his life of 125 years on earth, he spent 44 years just getting married, which does not make sense for a kshatriya of his stature, for a person of his stature. And that too, we know that he was there, I think, till the age of 15 or 16. He was there in Vrindavan only. After that, he went to Mathura. Then he started getting married. Just one sec. Aishwarya, Prithu, you're done. So anyway, I'll take Prithu. He just woke up. Please continue the discussion.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good discussion. I was thinking that Krishna is able to expand himself 16,000 times also. So probably the marriage happened at the same instant to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says. A person of his stature wouldn't spend 44 years into just getting married. That is why it is logical to understand that he's divine and then he's parallelly doing it.
Yeah, that's a great analogy actually. Kameshwar Prabhu and yourself brought with perspective of Krishna. Yeah, definitely. We cannot imitate what Krishna did, and we cannot take it lightly. Also, how he was equally showing love and affection to all 16,108 wives. It's impossible for any human being in this material world to copy that.
Yes.
Shall we move on to the next? Kameshwar Prabhu, would you like to read this 40 as purport also here?
Yes, Mataji. Dig up, it is 14.40. Yeah. Dig aprajam striyam papam patyusha chagraha samatam suprajabihi sapatnivihir dasim eva Teraxkrutam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A wife who has no sons is neglected at home by her husband and dishonored by her co-wives, exactly like a maid servant. Certainly, such a woman is condemned in each respect because of her sinful life. Purport. As stated by Chanakya Pandita, मातायस्य गृहे नास्ति भार्या च प्रियावादिनी अरण्यां तेन गन्तव्यां यथानरण्यां तथा गृहम्. A person who has no mother at home and whose wife does not speak sweetly should go to the forest. For such a person, living at home and living in the forest are equal. Similarly, for a woman who has no son, who is not cared for by her husband, and whose co-wives neglect her, treating her like a maid servant, to go to the forest is better than to remain at home. Yeah, a nice purport by Sail Prabhupada. So here he mentions that the importance being given to the wife, and actually when wife has no child, so how she will be treated actually, especially in the olden days, like in the ancient times, like people used to blame only the mother, only the woman if she is not getting children, saying that she has previous papa is there, so because of that she is not getting child. So that leads to that was leading to having many wives and all. So parents of the man used to encourage him to go for another marriage, and also Shastra used to say that you should get married until you get son. That is, I don't know exactly with the reference where the Shastra mentioned that, but I read somewhere like Shastra also supports to have more wives if yeah, and also it encourages and it gives a man has the right to get married if he has no son. I don't know exact reference, but the Chanakya Pandita also says here like Mata Isha Gruhe Nasti Bharya Cha Priya Vajani Aranyatena Gantavyam Yata Aranyam Tatha Gruham. So the forest and Gruham and house are the same if this is not there, like so yeah, mother mother at home without children, and wife without speaking sweetly at home. So these are the incidents where Chanakya Pandita is telling that both house and forest are the same. So this is the importance of getting motherhood. But usually, like if you think logically, like maybe we can always a problem with the male also, no? Why we should always like blame female, like getting children, not getting children depends on the, even if you think in a way of like Papa and Punya, in terms of Papa and Punya, maybe Papa is there from man side and woman side, both are, they got married because of that and they are now getting children. Maybe contribution of Papa is there from both sides. So I don't know, like I mean, like, but only getting married, many marriages leads to children. Or maybe, and of course, in case of Chitraketu, they mentioned in the beginning itself, Chitraketu is qualified in having a free qualification to be a father. It is a special case, maybe, but in general, I'm talking like, I don't know why in ancient days. Making a woman only the responsible for not getting a child. But this is my question. If anybody can answer this, that would be great.
Yeah, good question. Krishnan Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I don't have an answer for you, Prabhuji, but as I was reading the translation and purport of this verse, suddenly my mind went to Srila Prabhupada's relationship with his wife, and obviously, she's also part of the Leela, because we can all imagine that if she, if she was very supportive and very, very loving and caring, then it would have been difficult for Srila Prabhupada to do what he did in his life. So here, this particular verse, he says that a person, whose spouse doesn't talk to him sweetly or something like that, then living in the forest is equal. And I'm reading living in the forest as the sannyasa ashram. And maybe it is a direction for, maybe it's an indication that at that time sannyasa ashram is probably optimum. Just a thought. I was hoping that somebody else can also.
Yeah, I was going with the same notion. Instead of thinking for a sannyasa ashram, I was thinking forest to be to become God conscious, to check ourselves out from the from the material miseries of not having a child, especially when in the second paragraph, second sentence, says, similarly, for a woman who has no son, who is not cared for by her husband, and whose co-wives neglect her, treating her like a maidservant, to go to forest is better. But how can a woman go to a forest? It's also forbidden, and back in those days. I think here the forest is probably a metaphorical representation of us of self-realization, or liberation, or becoming more God conscious. So I was reminded of in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, where Suniti, even though she had child, she was still neglected by the husband and the co-wife, Suruchi, and treating her like a maidservant. They were given a maidservant quarter, and not allowed to come into the kingdom. And the Dhruva Maharaj was not allowed to enter into even the chamber of the king who was his own father. And well, I mean, she is a perfect example. She dedicated the whole life in just praying, and just she lived a life of devotion, and it paid off, because when she sent Dhruva to the forest, she sent him with the blessings that came from a space of non-enviousness. And so Dhruva Maharaj was able to see that what he's been praying for was just a broken pieces of glasses, whereas the real benediction is the love of God, which is like a diamond, which is very rare and unique. And so I equated this forest to kind of instead of material consciousness, go towards spirituality. That is what I was thinking, because even back in those days, women going to forest is forbidden. I don't think any women was, as far as I can tell, alone going to forest was not recommended. So yeah, I just would like others opinions, reflections, please. And I don't have an answer to your question, Prabhu, also, Rameshwar Prabhu, about how, why was only women chastised for not having a son? I think, it is an age-old problem, and I'm sure that it's still lingering in some,
I
village.
somehow think that it is not Shastric. I
Yes.
somehow think this is a product. I mean, that thinking that it's always the woman who is the problem, it has stemmed from a British way of thinking, because the British actually, they had this. Actually, in India, if you see what is dowry, right? Dowry is actually not that, the husband gets the money from his in-laws and he's enjoying nicely with that money. No, that was not the original concept of dowry. The original concept of dowry stems from the fact that the inheritance should be equally distributed. So, and the inheritance, and whether it's a boy or a girl, inheritance should be equally distributed. Now, the inheritance that the girl gets, that is actually dowry. And the dowry is not for the gratification of the husband. The dowry is strictly that whatever wealth that the lady gets, that is strictly under her control, and it's up to her how to use it. She can keep it for emergency purposes for her family, which is totally fine, but it's up to her how to use it. It's not that, nowadays people want, boys want so much money in dowry, car in dowry and things like that, and they spend, That's not the concept of dowry. That's the perverted reflection of the original concept of dowry.
Hmm.
Similarly, I think this practice of blaming the woman is actually a perverted reflection of some other concept. I don't think even now we have read all these purports and verses, right? Nowhere it says that it was an issue with the woman, right? Or nor it says that it was an issue with Chitraketu. Doesn't
Yeah.
blame anyone.
Yeah.
Doesn't put the blame on anyone. So I don't think this blaming the lady always, blaming the woman, the wife always, is a Vedic concept. It is a product of a patriarchal society, which is not originally Indian, I feel.
But if
Uh,
you, sorry, but if you think about the fact that I felt that it was inherently present, implicitly present, that I notion, that if Chitraketu felt that there could be a problem with him, and I mean, she should have realized at least after maybe 100,000. I mean, going up to 10 million, still he was thinking that, okay, I don't know what he was thinking, honestly, but it's implicit, right? Don't you think? Like, it is a little implicit there that he probably never thought that the problem was with him.
mm,
No, actually, in the
Also-
earlier verses it was mentioned. No, it was mentioned that he is having all qualifications to be a father. That is clarified in the previous verse. No,
No,
that
all
means some-
qualifications to be a father could also mean he had all the qualifications to be a father after the kid was born, as in be that parent,
Ah,
right? Not necessarily that he had the physical, biological ability to be a
mm,
father. I don't know. Just
mm,
interpretations.
Just a quick thought, the fact that there was envy amongst the other wives
Mhm.
means that there were, they did feel deprived, and and it, whatever, maybe it's not societal, but at least the implication is that Chitraketu himself was ignoring his other wives, and
Mhm.
possibly it was commonplace in society for women to be valued less if they didn't have children, because otherwise this verse wouldn't exist, right? This particular verse seems to imply that
yeah,
that women were valued less if they didn't have children.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that is true.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to answer. Well, I mean, with certainty, because our minds are conditioned according to the present day and age, and what were the socio-cultural factors back then. We It's tough to think, but yeah, we can just sit and kind of speculate or infer as to what it could have been. But yeah, tough to give
Yeah,
a specific answer, actually.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we can move on. And
Actually, just one last thing.
Sure, Prabhu.
This changing socio-economic, not economic, sorry, socio-cultural things. So one thing that always is true, despite any socio-cultural, any societal or cultural circumstance, is bhakti. So despite, like, okay, whatever it was in Satyuga, whatever it was in Dwapar Yuga, whatever it was in Treta Yuga, and whatever it is now, despite all of these things, the supremacy of bhakti remains. It's not that in Satya Yuga, bhakti was not supreme. So that is like the common link, that is irrespective of any socio-cultural
Yeah.
circumstance. That's what even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had said to Prabhupada, that governments will come and go, colonialism will come and go, but the urgency is the need for bhakti. So Anyway, just a thought from this
Yeah.
discussion. Thought.
Yeah, very well said, Prabhu. I mean, any situation, any uh, provoking situations or any sorrowful situations, we can definitely seek out to bhakti. It's always available. It's always within us to to take that option. Yes, definitely. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
I'll also share one more thought,
Yes,
which
please.
is that the purpose of these verses is, obviously we can take multiple, understandings from these purpose, but I think one of them is to tell us that even we will act in these ways, just like the wives did. And of course, we may not take as much of an extreme step, but our minds are capable of doing that too. And the purpose of any Purana is to is not to exactly reflect the the material conditionings that we have, but to warn us that these things can happen even in us in subtle ways.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Very great point, Prabhu. Yeah. Can we move on? Anybody else have any reflections, thoughts before? There's a great
Only one thing
topic for discussion.
before.
Yes. Yes, Prabhu.
Only one thing I liked your purport, Mataji. Actually, you nicely correlated the forest towards spiritual life. That is very great analogy because nowadays, applying to nowadays situation, forest is taking up seriously spiritual life, devotional service. That's very nice analogy. I like that.
Yeah, because especially in the terms of women, it is not possible even in today's world. It's not possible. So how it would have been possible in the, because women should always be protected first by her father, then by the husband, then finally towards the old age by the sons. So where there is there is nowhere it said that it can go to a forest, right? So especially to a forest where it's totally unsafe. Yeah, that's when it made me think like that. Yeah, I don't know. It may be wrong
Yeah.
also. I don't know.
Yeah, it is very applicable. Like that's what Prabhupada made all the institutions. These are for that only. Like he created this throughout the world. He created so many centers only to give a shelter to in such cases, especially in such cases. Like not like whenever this happens, like you completely turn to this institution.
Yeah.
Like the forest, you take this forest as an ISKCON center, go there
Yeah.
and spend your that is the shelter that Prabhupada created.
Yeah.
That is his idea. Like everybody
Yeah.
can take shelter and progress in the life, like devotional service and all.
Yeah, Jay, very beautifully said, Prabhu. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's like a world is a big family of Krishna conscious devotees. Wherever we go, we see temples. Whatever country we go, there is an ISKCON temple there. Yeah, definitely, it's a big family. Yeah. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, would you like to read 41?
Yeah, sure. Am I muted?
Oh, no.
Oh no, I'm not muted. Sorry. दासीनां को नु संतापः स्वामिनः परिचर्यया अभीक्षणं लब्धमानानां दास्या दासीव दुर्भगः. even maid servants who are constantly engaged in rendering service to the husband are honored by the husband, and thus they have nothing for which to lament. Our position, however, is that we are maid servants of the maid servant. Therefore, we are most unfortunate. 1 minute. I read the correct one, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, the wives are lamenting in their situation, and they are considering themselves like maid servants of the maid servants, which reminds me of us, you know, the perfect consciousness being servant of the servant. So yeah, this same consciousness when applied to bhakti becomes so nourishing, but when it is applied to material things, this same consciousness can completely uh, push us down. uh, that's all.
Yeah, very true. Actually, this is from a point of view of the wives, they are mentioning this, right? Like our position, meaning the wives are saying, the
Yeah.
wives who are not the queen, the co-wives are all are all probably said, talking amongst themselves.
Yes.
Our position, however, so I mean, yeah, for everybody, there is their own sufferings are there, first of all, right? That's what I feel. From their point of view, the maid servants may appear to be serving the husband, but for them, nothing to lament may not be the case. They may want more money.
Of course, yeah.
They may want a bigger house, they may want a better facilities. So the lamentation is always there. But from the perspective that we see the other people, it is from where we are lacking. But they may be lacking in other things that we may not see. So that is one thing that came to my mind when I read this. And very beautifully said about the servant of the servant. And so I always, we call our kids as prince and princesses, especially the girls. There's a tendency to call, princess and stuff.
Yeah. Papa ki
because-
pari.
Sorry? Yeah.
Papa ki pari.
Yeah. So I tell Radha Kripa that, you're not a princess. Radharani is the only princess, and we are all servant of Radharani. I don't know, she doesn't understand it. But she behaves like a princess. Sometimes I tell her that you're not a princess, you're a servant. So let's work on keeping things, not making a mess and not demanding things. So this just reminds me of that. Yeah, but in the material world is completely different. We call the kids are born or raised thinking that they are prince and princesses, and they have this illusion that they are perfect. And then when they out in the real world in their teens, they realize that I'm nowhere compared to other people, and then their bubble kind of breaks, and a lot of mental kind of incoherence happens at that point. So it's best to have some kind of raise children with some kind of a humility, saying, yes, you're good, but then you're not the best, or something like that. I don't know. It's okay to not be the best also. And just be grateful of what we have, or something like that.
Yeah, very good point, actually. Yeah, I guess gratitude is the key. Gratitude means you are acknowledging, you're being humble and acknowledging what you have, being grateful for it. And that automatically translates into not being proud of what you have. Because if you're full, then you're not, there is rather little scope for being pride, like having pride in that. So yeah, gratitude and pride go ill together, I guess. So yeah.
I mean, a humble heart is born from being grateful. Actually, it's both ways. I think if you're grateful, we have humility. If you have humility, it gives rise to gratitude.
Right.
They're
Mhm.
both hand in hand, I think. Yeah. Anybody else has any thought? This is a very beautiful, verse. We can picture that those co-wives are lamenting among themselves, and we also find ourselves that we are the most unfortunate because we don't have blah, right? Something in our life missing. So it is it's kind of very relatable situation. Yeah. Okay, then we can move on. 42. This also doesn't have purport. You would like to read Raghunath Gopal Prabhu, and then we can move to 43 with Kamesha Prabhu.
Okay. Evam sandahayamanánaṁ sapatnyah putra sampada radnyo sammata vrittinam vidvesho balavan abhut. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, by being neglected by their husband and seeing Kritadyuti's opulence in possessing a son, Kritadyuti's co-wives always burned in envy, which became extremely strong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
nothing to share here.
yeah.
So,
This is I really liked how Sindhu Kanya last week was comparing this envy to the envy of the of Kaikeyi, which was kind of fueled by mantra, and yeah, it's beautiful, and how it burns it makes us think as though we have nothing except this big blob of envy in front of us, and we forget all the good things that are there in us, and it burns. Yeah, it burns like forest fire. Text 43. Commissioner Prabhuji, like to read?
Yes, Mataji. Vidvesha nasta matayah striyo daruna chetasaha garam daduhu kumaraya turmasha Draupadim Prati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Can you move it first, Mataji? Translation. As their envy increased, they lost their intelligence, being extremely hard-hearted and unable to tolerate the king's neglect. They finally administered poison to the son. So, yeah, this is here very good analogy. Comparison has been given, consequence has been given. See, as their envy increased, they lost their intelligence. See here the difference, the relation between envy and losing intelligence. This recollects me that one verse in Bhagavad Gita. What is the consequences? I mean, sorry, I forgot that sequences. Two verses are there. Anybody can give those, or you can pull those two verses in Bhagavad Gita. How the finally the moha.
Oh, that this one. Dhyayato Vishayan
Contemplation,
Pumsam Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. That one?
Yes, please. The two verses I want to.
Yeah. Then Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat Smriti Vibhrama Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinashat. So Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa, contemplation. Then by contemplation, one develops a desire to associate with the objects of senses. Sangas Teshu Pajayate. Then Sangat Sanjayate Kama, sorry, no, I'm missing the sequence, but yeah, contemplation, then desire to associate, then the actual association, then because of not getting it turns into vrat, then vrat turns into it destroys the smriti memory, which destroys buddhi nasho, which destroys the buddhi intelligence, and once intelligence is destroyed, then pranashyati, fall down.
See,
Yeah.
the same sequence here, envy, because of envy, just in the beginning itself, they should have prevented it. Like they should have taken care of, like any intelligent person can take care of it. Unless we cannot manage with that, it leads to loss of intelligence. Like even common sense also will go to such an extent that to give poison to another jivatma. Like so, how degradation is happened. Like so, the envy is the root cause. Thereby, it led them to do this abominable papa. Like they did whatever. What sort of thing they have done with child, killing a child is how sinful activity they did because of this envy. So this that's by nicely given translation. So purport is not given here. So if anybody can want to can add their reflection on this.
Yeah, this is yeah, the envy leads to. Yeah, are you all able to see when I share this Bhagavad Gita verse, or should I? I don't know.
It's okay. Already.
I'm actually pulling up the verse. I'm not sure if you're able to see.
Yeah, we can see, Mataji.
Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah, from anger, delusion, and then from delusion, bewilderment, memories, intelligence lost. When intelligence is lost, that's when we do this, these kind of things, where we are not able to discriminate from what is good, right, or what is wrong, right from wrong. And then we will lose that discrimination, ability to discriminate. Then that's when we do things that we regret. Yes.
Yeah, these two verses should be memorized. Like because I thought of memorizing these two because they're very very useful actually.
Yeah.
Regular life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it says the contemplation is the key. I guess if because the co-wives before they became envious, they were contemplating on the fact that they are unhappy. They are,
Yes.
they are.
Yes.
So the more they contemplate, and the issue becomes bigger and bigger, and then it burns like fire, the envy, and then and then the intelligence is lost, and very very nice correlation, probably. Yeah, thank you for doing that. Anybody has any thoughts on this? Is a very crucial.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare
I just have one question about contemplation. So, but doesn't contemplation depend on like the nature of the contemplation itself? Because sometimes I feel like even for us to make a move or move forward in life, or even in like bhakti, or realize the importance of bhakti, even then mostly it comes out of contemplation. Even in like a lot of pastime. So does it depend upon the nature of the I feel like it depends upon the nature of the hear your thoughts on the same.
Sorry, can you finish that sentence? Nature of the. Sorry, I missed that.
No, I was just saying that I feel like the nature of the contemplation, like contemplation in general, is very important and essential, but the nature of the contemplation is what the nature of the contemplation association is what influences our decisions. I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is talking about the contemplating on the senses or the sense objects that drag us out of our out of our original consciousness. That's what this contemplation talks about. Yes, contemplating on the spiritual platform is always nice. Is always elevating us. but that doesn't drag us from the original consciousness. So anything that any contemplation that pulls us out of our being Krishna conscious or conscious of our original position, being the servant of the Lord. I think that's what it's mentioned here. That's my inference, but Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, anybody else have?
Thank you, Mataji.
That's right, Mataji. That's contemplation on sense objects that is being talked about here. Dhyayato Vishayan.
Yeah. So this is contemplating on the objects of the senses. Yeah, this is it's a very nice question. So it's not that all types of contemplation leads to delusion of intelligence. It's the one that takes us away from our original consciousness is what what we need to be aware of. Yeah, by all means, if you are contemplating on Jagannath, it's great. Yeah. Please
you, Mataji.
continue to do your contemplation. Yes. Yeah. Any other thoughts, inputs, reflections? Vallabh Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking, like, what other options, the co-wives were having, because they were having no association, or all they had, like, everyone was envious. So it was just like stilling ghee in the fire for each other. And same with the Kekai, instigated by Mantra. So we hear that the kings, they do have like advisors or the gurus to advise them on such issue. But what about the the wives that we hear? In same case of Dhruva Maharaj that you were sharing, pretty much they are on their own, that they have to think on their own, and they have to just control their senses. Or I was just wondering, like, what association, because I can see it is more about association here that they have, and they are just planning all this thing. They don't have anyone to share their heart.
Very great point, Prabhu. Very, very beautiful point. Yes. There's not like there is there's always this like rishis and like Vashishta Muni or somebody who's advising, ministers are advising the king, but then there is nothing like that, right? For the queens or for the co-wives. Yeah, they were left kind of by themselves. Yeah, it's a very, very great point. So it's a lack of association. Yeah, what other options do they have? Yes, it's I don't disagree. Yeah, it's completely agree with that. There is no kind of like a Guru Mata or some kind of a person who they can go to and get guidance, actually, right? I mean, I've never heard of anything. Anybody else has any?
Yeah, I have
thoughts
just
on this?
one thought, Mataji. Actually, in Shastra, it is actually husband has to take care of spiritual life of a wife. So it is a responsibility of husband to guide them spiritually, that is the only shelter they have for a married woman, because they get married very early age and they don't learn by themselves anything spiritually. Spiritual knowledge comes from husband only. The husband's responsibility to give the knowledge to the wife. But I'm talking this without my realization, without following it. So that's what I'm hesitating to tell here. But still, I'm sharing it. Definitely, I'm not doing this. But there is a first responsibility of the husband. Husband is the first responsible person to give spiritual knowledge to the wife. That's what I felt. But they're lacking because he's not getting time. So he's with his son and his other things. So maybe That is only the shelter, and because of that missing there, that led them to have envy, and followed by loss of intelligence, and all these things are happening. Maybe, yeah, that is only, I think, that's my addition from myself.
Yeah, yeah. Looks like that, right? I mean, if you think about it, it is not because the king is happy that they can be happy. The king is happy, they're probably happy, but the queen gets more attention. So that's why they are envious. The envious of the queen. It's not because the king is happy with the son. Probably they are also at some point they also are happy to play with the son. But then seeing that the queen gets the most attention now, because the king spends most of the time in the queen's chamber. That's when the envy pops up.
No, actually, VCP's question is not this. He's
No,
asking
correct,
that.
correct. Yeah. But I mean, I don't disagree. Like, there is, it's perfectly valid point that there is a lack of association for them. So how do they get association? Any thoughts anyone has? Krishnan Prabhu? Great question.
Yeah, of course, but there are there are lots of Matajis and Devis who are perfect devotees in our Puranas too. So even if you look at Rukmini's story, she's always listening to Krishna stories. Of course, she's the supreme goddess, but but she's always listening to Krishna stories, and hence hence writes a letter to Krishna and gets. So that is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it, which Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, actually I heard a class today, and it really blew my mind. So if you think about it, there is nature and nurture, right? These queens, they probably had a certain nature, which is probably their identity, and how they were misidentified. They didn't know that they were the soul. They didn't know that they were servants of Krishna, and that's why they did whatever they did. That is on the nature side. Nurture is what you're talking about, which is association or good company, and all that is important in nurture. And the point that Chaitanya Charan Prabhu made in the class that I heard today is nurture is across lifetimes. So yes, in this lifetime, they did not have good association. But the examples that we see of people who are pure devotees have had good association in some lifetime in their past. So both of these have to be taken into account, nature and nurture. And even if they get good association, sometimes one life is not enough to cross through this, material journey and purify ourselves. Anyway, I just thought I'll share this. It's a fantastic class today on holistic health or something. I'll try to put the link in the WhatsApp group. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, beautiful point about nature and nurture. Yes, we all born with one nature, but what is how do we nurture our ourself? What is the nourishment that we get for our intelligence or for the consciousness? That's also very important. Yes.
As far as spiritual association for Matajis goes during that time, I would believe that there would be the priestly class, right, of like the gurus of the family. So of course there would be, every king would have one guru, but then there would be that guru's disciples and everything. So they would have their wives. So just like in today's day and age, we have senior Vaishnavis, like for instance, say Vishakha Priya Mataji, or for instance, even in this group we have the LOD, women's Sangha. where Aishwarya gets inspiration from the like you, Nitya Mataji, and the other Matajis in the group. So similarly, I would believe there would be some sort of a spiritual association that the Matajis would also get. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that would be the case, because otherwise we'd have to assume that they would be completely isolated from each other and disconnected, like these all the Matajis that time, which I don't think would have been the case. So there would definitely be some sort of spiritual. There's definitely some sort of connection, and within that, some sort of spiritual connection too. Uh, and like I so my parents-in-law, they have like a family guru, and then that family guru's wife is also very close to my mother-in-law. So they both meet, and they discuss, and she guides her, like the guru's wife, she guides my mother-in-law in various things. So I think there would be some sort of a spiritual exposure definitely for them. um yeah uh, yeah, I would think like that, but of course Bhagavatam doesn't go into details as
Yeah,
to.
it doesn't. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't go details, because maybe it's also not necessary. I think it is also highlighting the point that exactly the point that Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu was making, is that it's by the association that we get we get the diminishing our ability to discriminate. It's if you are in bad association, this is what happens. And
Yeah.
I guess. So I mean, it said that she didn't understand that he was dead. So I guess it looks like he's already dead. So administered poison in the I guess yeah. Did we read 40? I'm just we read 44 also, right? Or no?
I think not.
No, 44 we have to read.
We have
44
to
we have
read.
to read.
Okay. So
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. So yeah, they finally administered poison. Okay. So which means that that's already done. Yeah. The damage is done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's clear there. As envy increased, the loss of intelligence. It's beautiful. Yeah. But the key point is that what Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu made is even if they had been advised nicely by someone, at least they would have probably got back to their senses and realized what they were, the effect of, or the impact of what they were trying to do. But their envy is so big, it burns like a forest fire, especially the collective envy of 10 million minus one co-wives. So it is it's just huge. Yeah. Also, I mean, yeah, there are many aspects to this. Even an advisor to the king can foresee all this, and they might have advised the king not to neglect his wives, right? I mean, that's also possible. And anyways, a lot of possibilities are there.
Yeah.
But Bhagavatam does not go into details of how or why such envy was allowed to brew for a long time. Yeah. So I guess remains unanswered. Okay.
I guess
So,
the thrust of the story is what the Bhagavatam sticks to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Other
given that,
details,
yeah, correct. Yeah.
we'd have to consult some other scripture maybe for.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we'll read 44.
44 I'll read, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Krutadyutir अजानन्ति सपत्नीनाम् आघं महात् शुप्तये वेति सांचिन्त्य निरीक्ष्य व्याचरत् गृहे. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Unaware of the poison administered by her co-wives, Queen Kutadjuti walked within the house, thinking that her son was sleeping deeply. She did not understand that he was dead. She is thinking that his son is sleeping. Queen Kutadjuti is thinking that he is in deep sleep. So she doesn't know about the background story. So what had happened? So she thinking that his son is deeply in sleep. She did not understand that he was dead. So no purpose. Shall we move to the next
Yes.
verse?
Yes, Prabhu.
45. Sayanam. Sayanam suchiram balam. Sayanam suchiram balam. Upadhyarya manishini putram anayame bhadre iti dhatrim achodayat. Translation. Thinking that her child had been sleeping for a long time, Queen Kutadjuti, who was certainly very intelligent, ordered the nurse, "My dear friend, please bring my son here." So now the time to be like he's a little bit unusually he's sleeping for a long time. So Kutadjuti, she realized that something is wrong with him, and then she ordered the caretaker to wake him up and bring her son to her. So this is also not having any purport here.
Yeah.
So we are proceeding to the next one, 46.
Sure, bro.
Sasahayam sasahyanam upavrajya drishtva lochanam pranendriyatmavihi tyaktvam hatasmiti apatat bhuvi. Translation. When the maidservant approached the child who was lying down, she saw his eyes were turned upward. There were no signs of life, all his senses having stopped, and she could understand that the child was dead. Seeing this, she immediately cried, "Now I am doomed," and fell to the ground. So the maidservant approached the child, and she observed that her eyes turned upward, and there's no signs of breathing and all. The body became cold. So she realized that the child was dead. So shocked at this, she fell on the ground and she cried. And this is also not having purpose. And next verse probably will describe how she cried helplessly. It is 47. Shall I proceed from anybody? Any reflection? Anything?
Yeah. Anybody else? Please raise your hands if you have any thoughts, reflections, questions. Krishnan Prabhu, you. This is from before, or would you like some?
Sorry, I lowered my hand. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, you were saying something?
No.
No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, I was unmuted all the while. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
didn't have anything to say, Mataji.
Yeah, we can end with this verse 47, and then we can pick it up next class.
Okay.
47 verse. Sasyastada karanya brahashaturam swaram yatmatyaha karabhyam uravuchakkairapi pravikhya rasmi tvarayatma tvarayatma Dadarshapalam Sahasa Brutam Sutam. Translation. Translation by is given by C.C. Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. In great hesitation, the maidservant stuck her breast with both hands and cried loudly in regretful words. Hearing her loud voice, the queen immediately came, and when she approached her son, she saw that he was suddenly dead. Yeah, it is more natural description how like when suddenly something happens, especially women, how they express their grief. Really nice description by Srila Vyasadeva. Like how exactly this happens, I have seen many times, like in railway stations and also in villages, especially the innocent women, when something happens, especially for their child in hospitals, you can see they bring their children to the hospital when they are helplessly in the dangerous serious conditions. You can see that many times it so happened for me, like I came across such helpless um, rural women. Innocently they cry for their child, deceased child, and the same way they cry, like with both hands they beat their heart, and like they cry helplessly. And that exactly the same way description is very naturally described here. Very hard, very touching, like very how that the woman is really you can visualize like how she is crying for a sudden unexpected thing, for a king's son. um, Such a VIP, like in the whole for the whole country. Especially he appeared after a long time, after cherished by so many people in the country. So the description is very nicely made here. Like the maidservant stuck her breast with both hands and cried loudly in regretful words. So in between they talk. In between also they talk, crying loudly. I have seen him like like a few hours back. He was turning this side, that side, but now I don't know why it is happening and all. So she's in between. She's speaking some words, and then she's crying helplessly. So now you can take it ahead.
Yeah, it is really, we can picture this scene, how it is terrifying for a parent. This scene would be to from a queen's perspective, and also from a nurse perspective, how what agony that must be going through in nurse to beat one's breast, with both hands. That is to express the agony, the pain. They do that when somebody is going through some suffering and we cannot bear it. Very beautifully expressed how it happens even in today's world. Even in the movies we can see this, where the village elderly women, they sit around a dead body, and then they actually struck their breasts and say and just cry out in agony, in pain. I was also contemplating on one thing, is that these wives could have easily poisoned the queen, right? Because they are envious of the queen. I mean, the poor child did not do anything, but they wanted to destroy the source of happiness that was there for the king and the queen. It's even more vicious than than just getting rid of the queen. Because at that point they did not care about their husband, because the husband doesn't care. So it's like because the reciprocation they are not getting from their husband. So they want to make the husband unhappy. I think they did not even care about the feelings of their own husband. Because one would think that it would be fair to if it's not fair at any means to do any harm to any living being. But between the son and the queen would have been an easy target, because then if we attack the queen, then obviously the responsibility to take care of the children will fall on all the co-wives, and the husband's love for his son, will be rekindled with the co-wife. So that would have been a better route. But they did not take that. They wanted to kill the source of happiness that was there for both the king and the queen. That was even more vicious. This just reminds me of the pastime of Prahlad, where Hiranyakashipu could have easily killed Prahlad, or I mean not easily, but at the final juncture, he wanted to first kill his faith by striking on the pillar and showing that your God is here, God is there, Vishnu is here, Vishnu is there. I'll show you how easily I can destroy your faith. So he started destroying the faith first. That is even more vicious, more cunning, more manipulative than anything else. So it is. I just thought I'll share that. It just came to my mind. Yeah. Anybody else? This is the last verse for this week. So anybody has any reflections on any of the verses, or any questions or anything? Please.
The point you made about faith is very profound, actually. If faith is destroyed, then everything is destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's faith is what starts her bhakti, and that same faith becomes stronger and stronger. And I mean, we know we start bhakti with Adho Shraddha, right? So that same faith grows stronger and stronger and sustains us in our other stages of bhakti.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if Nrsimhadev does not show up, then I don't know. It's and even if Nrsimhadev shows up, and if Hiranyakashipu, destroy, that was his hope, that to kill his faith, so that he may at least now realize who's higher. Like, so yeah, I guess maybe we can say he still had love for his son at that point, or I don't know. Because it's easy to just kill the son, right? Because that's what he tried to do, but still, but he wanted to kill the faith first, so that the son can surrender to him finally. But yeah.
yeah, because that he would have been a better thing for him, that his faith, and then he would say Hiranyakashipu ki jai, and then serve his dad.
Yeah.
Become like, that would have been like a big win. But
yeah, it is clearly intelligence is lost in this case, of these wives, because they want to kill the source of happiness for the king and queen, so that the life can, probably they thought that if the son is gone, maybe their lives will be restored as to how it was before the son was born.
Yeah. See, I guess this is where I guess the futility of envy is evident in this story, because of course I don't know whether Chitraketu knew that his other wives poisoned the kid. I mean, we are reading it, but it was written by a third person, like who was it was written by Vyasdev. So I mean, it's like we are watching a movie and we know who the,
Mm.
although within the
Yeah.
movie villain is playing as a, but we know as viewers that he's the villain. So similarly here we know that the wives are the villain, but did Chitraketu know that they were the one who poisoned? But anyway, the fact remains that were they expecting that once they kill the son, Chitraketu is going to again start showing affection to them? Because yeah, I think so, because they would, I guess they it is easy enough to conclude that once the sun goes, then Chitraketu would go to into even more grief, even more lamentation. So there was no scope for, but I guess they wanted to do as much damage as possible. At least damage
Yeah.
the wife. At least damage the source of happiness for the wife.
Yeah.
Husband, yeah, husband,
But they didn't realize that husband will also be affected and will be devastated, and there's no point in. Yeah, I guess that is where the intelligence is lost there, because we lose the ability to discriminate what is right, what is wrong. We just do whimsically what comes to our mind, and yeah, it's
Yeah, it's like I am reminded of an analogy. I mean, I can think of an analogy like when we are overcome by envy for someone, we try to take away their source of happiness. So similarly, when we become envious of Krishna, we try to take his energy away from him. We try to enjoy the energy for ourselves. Just like Ravana tried to enjoy Mother Sita. So Ravana tried to enjoy the energy of the Lord. Ravana tried to enjoy the source of happiness for Lord Ram, which was Mother Sita, who was Mother Sita. So similarly, we also become envious of Krishna. We try to steal kind of the energy of Krishna for our own needs, self or whatever. Yeah.
Vallabh
Yeah.
Chaitanya Prabhu. You have a point?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that story when a neighbor was given the benediction, what you want. So he said, whatever my neighbor gets, double of that. So the other neighbor says, just take my one eye. So I was just thinking that nature of envy. Whereas in devotees, it is like para dukha dukhi and para sukha sukhi.
Very good
Uh,
point, Prabhu.
Thinking
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's so like striking difference, right? Like with the maid servants, and how yeah, we also where we were reading the maid servants of the maid servant. I mean, it's just so, when it comes to spiritual consciousness, the dimension, that the thinking, everything is different, um as opposed to the material consciousness. It's so very clear. But there is I mean, there is also envy in spiritual consciousness also. So there is yeah, it's yeah. So Radhanath Swami Maharaj always says that the barometer of how advanced we are in spirituality is can be known by how are we happy when our other devotees are happy receiving mercy from Krishna or from other senior devotees in their lives, or are we and are we sad when they suffer? So this is the kind of a barometer by which we can gauge ourselves whether we are growing spiritually or not. But everybody has to gauge for themselves. It's not it's something that we have to ask deeply within ourselves, is are we happy when others are happy, or and are we sad when others are sad, especially in our devotee community? If we are thinking that, oh, how can I'm also doing the same seva. I've also been up since 3 a.m. doing all the seva for cooking and cutting boga, vegetables and all that. But then the other devotee gets all the praise for distributing books or something. If that thought even comes, then we know where we stand, and we have to pretty much use that to gauge ourselves and also to better ourselves. Yeah, it's very profound. Yeah, very, very good point both of you made about this point of envy.
Is your Saturday class on envy?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of envy related things we've been reading. So
Hmm.